There it goes. Tiny, you want to say it?
Oh, and 7 rings.
Thanks. All right. I'll pray for us and then we'll get going. Father, thank you for this story. Thank you for the images and the beauty in this. Thank you for a story that ends like this. Thank you for boys who don't talk while I'm praying. Thank you for boys that do. Thank you for the fact that we've only got 2 more myths after this, or at least 2 more that I'm going to talk about. So whatever we do talk about today, Lord, I pray that it sink in deep, that some of the themes and some of the truths, some of the realities that have gone across the centuries about stories like this would just sink and by osmosis infect us with your reality through storytelling and through images and writings and everything. In your precious name, amen. All right, so just a quick review. We're going to just, because I was kind of rushing yesterday as we were leaving, and this is not a myth that you can really rush through, man. This myth is precious. Like I said to you yesterday, there are many retellings of this kind of a story. My Fair Lady is probably the one that everybody knows the most because the idea of it starts really, really disgusting. Remember, we have a man named Pygmalion who's in his city-state where what's going on? Where, what's the heaviest reality?
Women are prostitutes.
Yeah, women are prostitutes. The city-state kind of, like there are many cities in the world today. I was trying to make sure that y'all saw that this isn't like a weird mythic thing. There are many places in the world today that are just known that you can go and no one's going to judge you for taking part in prostitution. And then I would even make the argument that the internet has kind of allowed, even the phone has kind of allowed there to not really even be a boundary of a place anymore. Now it's just so you make a decision in your own mind, into your own spirit, and you can kind of take the idea of prostitution and the possibility of being able to get lust out of your system or maybe even lust into your system wherever you want. But this city-state was bound by that. This man stayed faithful by staying in his city-state. But what did he do while he was there? He didn't just leave his city-state. He could have done that. But what did he do while he stayed there?
Grafted.
Well, before that. Before that. Yeah, he's going to stay there in this city-state, and he's going to scorn the advances of all women in his city-state, basically turning himself into a man in a vow of, what would you fill in the blank? Taking a vow of?
Honor?
Sure, honor.
Loyalty.
Loyalty to who?
To his art.
To his own art. That's good. What else do we say? Usually sometimes people today say, oh, I'm taking a vow of, like I've had my hot girl summer, I'm going to take a vow of singleness. In the Middle Ages, what was it called? A vow of... Because this happened a lot in like church leaders' lives. They would take a vow of... Do y'all know the word I'm talking about? Vow of chastity. A vow of celibacy. No, that's it's castration. No, I'm not talking about that. Oh, although some people did, and that's what's so crazy. That's kind of what we're talking about today. So he did take that vow, but then just like Tina said, he decided that within his own life, within his own practice, and within his own, what did you say, Tina?
Loyalty to his art.
Within his own art, he found enough delight in himself that he wouldn't need to have a relationship with another person in order to be who he was supposed to be. But remember, what goddess's face did he spit in? Aphrodite, the goddess of love and desire and all of these things. So, we have a pretty unique situation as he digs further into himself and into his art, kind of like Tina's saying, what begins to happen?
Also love with his creation.
Yeah, he has a creation as a result of even his own life and his own skill and his own art. And so what happens is he falls in love with his creation, which is something that we were trying to talk about the other day, the triune God. It's a really unique, confusing thing to comprehend, why a God that was fully complete in his own existence all of a sudden created something and fell irreparably in love with his own creation. We see a really unique thing here in that. And we see a man as well trying to be his own God, which a man, in my opinion, because I believe in this stuff, was made in God's triune image, which means that being alone isn't right. And so we're going to talk about that concept a little bit today. We're going to dig into the fact that his story ends in a very joyous one, whereas most of the metamorphoses that we've talked about end in what, Christian? Nate,
Lost.
what are you watching? Stop watching stuff. I'm like pouring my soul out to you guys, and you're watching YouTube. That blows my freaking mind. Even you guys watching YouTube right now. Talking to the people in the video. Stop watching YouTube in my class. That's so awful, man. Like, what else do you want? Like, truly. All right, so here we go. We're going to dig into the ending of this a little bit more because this is a huge one. I don't take 2 days on a lot of myths, but this is one that I think is something that can really help you see into a deeper level of the myth that you're talking about for your own presentation you're going to do. All right, I want you to really rip open your heart about your presentation. If you feel like the myth that you've chosen right now at this point isn't something you can rip your heart open about, find a new one. I'll help you find a new one. Come to me, I'll help you find something that you actually find a passion within, because this for me is mine. This is mine. I love this myth. I love the next one we're going to do. I love the last one I saved for the very end. The last one is my favorite myth. It doesn't mean by any means it needs to be yours, but it's my favorite. So, this is where I went with it yesterday. All right, I talked to you guys about, the idea of like, okay, this story for a lot of people, they get lost in sort of the critical theory of a story like this, men getting to decide. And then, of course, going back 50 years, you can see that, like, if we were to treat men and women equally, that would be very awful to do. And nowadays, it's like, if you don't treat men and women equally, that's an awful thing to do. It's like you can't win in this conversation. So what we got to kind of do a little bit about this guy's story and about Galatea's story as well, the object of love, which, by the way, we are Galatea. In the Christian sense of this story, we are that woman. We are that bride. That's actually how the Lord describes us, how many people describe us in Scripture. All right, so we read this right here. We talked about the singleness thing, the vow of chastity thing. You can go back and look at that if you want to, but I'd rather talk more about this kind of stuff, okay? I want to go back into really the metamorphoses that are in this story. What's the obvious metamorphoses in the story? The obvious, like, mythic change in the story? Yeah, 1,000%. You've got Galatea. She's rock and stone and hard-packed earth, becoming a living and breathing person to love and to be loved. That's the reason for her existence. That's the whole purpose of her being in this story at all. Now, what about the second one? Who do you think is the second metamorphosis in the story? Yeah, the guy, Pygmalion. What's his? How would you describe his? Okay, that's a good, simple way to talk about it. This is how I've said it. He's a self-centered, like you were saying, loyal to himself. He's a self-centered, self-righteous bachelor, choosing to be alone. But then he becomes a person humbled in the presence of the power of love. Remember, he has to like hide away in this dark corner during the festival of Aphrodite just to like apologize to her. And that's actually what's interesting about this, is that there's a third metamorphosis in this story that you do not see in most Greek or Roman mythologies. Who is the third metamorphosis in the story? Aphrodite. Yeah! Y'all have seen Aphrodite in stories before. She's like very proud. You don't mess with a goddess like Aphrodite. You just don't do it. But in this story, what did she do? She changed from being what would you say? Well, she is, but usually she's proud and unforgiving. She's the one who wants all the glory to be poured out onto herself. But she answers this one man's insanely humble prayer. And this is what's wild about it, is she becomes so gracious to his pain and humility and merciful that she gave way more than what he ever even asked for. Remember, what did he actually ask for? Yes, give me somebody. I realize now through the love of my creation that I need something living that can reciprocate, truly receive and understand my love. Like I love this statue, is what he said. But then what did Aphrodite do? She said, I'll do you like 50 times better. I will bring that statue, a dead, never living thing, to life. Something that you created to the perfection of your eternal imagination, whatever it is. I'll bring that thing to life for you to love. So that's crazy, because no time does a goddess like Aphrodite really ever do something like that. So we've got Pygmalion and Aphrodite. The usual process of stories like these is what? You have a man or a human figure looking at the gods and saying, what? Yeah, usually because they say, what's the word? I've taught y'all this Greek word before. It's when they have like too much pride of something that they think they have of their own doing. You might have forgotten it. That's okay. I probably haven't used it in a minute. But they have hubris. So hubris is a word that's used a lot in storytelling because you can identify it in every single person ever. Every person, all the time, has a hubris. A hubris is their fatal flaw. So what is like an example of a fatal flaw in somebody?
Jealousy.
Huh?
Jealousy.
Yeah, jealousy. Can't let go of their jealousy. What's another one?
Stubbornness.
Stubbornness. That's Pygmalion's, I'd say. Stubbornness and pride in his own. What's another one? We see it a lot in some other stories. Lust. Lack of self-control. I'd say Pygmalion. That's not Pygmalion's. Pygmalion's is kind of the opposite. He looks at Aphrodite and says, my self-righteousness, my ability, my pride is better than and more satisfying to me than what you have to offer me. So usually what happens in stories like this is that the hubris in humans is met by these arbitrary choices of the gods, whatever they deem fit, based on what a human did. But that's what's so unique about this story. I'm trying to point this out as much as I can. There are second chances. That never happens in Greek mythology. Usually there is an insult to the gods or an insult from the humans. And then there's some weird decision that the gods decide to just lay fat on the humans from above. No relationship at all. But now there's second chances. Pygmalion apologizes. Aphrodite doesn't do what she usually does, and she offers him mercy and more grace than she's ever offered anybody. All right? He repents. There's no better word for it. He turns from, literally, his own way and has to go back and apologize to God and say, I want to go your way. Please help me go your way. Give me an object to go your way. And then Aphrodite does. She forgives him. That's so freaking rare in the ancient Near Eastern world. Okay? And then as a result, love in this story abounds beyond imagination. There's no death, no loss. All right? Don't get me wrong, though. As there always are with myths that are this old, there are versions of the story that are taken to be like really depressing in the end. Really depressing in the end. All right? But this one, the way Ovid does it, doesn't do that. So, Pygmalion's hubris, we can just talk about this really, really quick. It's not just pride. All right? I think that Christian was getting at it. All right? He's guilty of not knowing the true value of things. He looks at his own stubbornness, he's looking his own way, and he doesn't want to know the true value of the other way. He sees the women in his city-state, and he deems himself too righteous for them. His perspective is all that he needs. Or at least in his own opinion, it's all that he needs. All right? He rejected, literally, I don't know what other word to use, the fittedness that God had established between man and woman because of his own perspective on himself as a man and those women in his city-state. So let me just take you to Genesis. All right? Genesis 2, 19 to 24, everything's kind of been created for a while, and this is what it says. Now the Lord God had formed out of the ground all the wild animals, all the birds in the sky. He brought them to the man to see, and this is what's interesting. A lot of people kind of take the Genesis story, and I don't really know what I'm saying right now, but I feel like there's so much more to it than like God gave Adam the job of naming all the animals. But this is actually how it's worded. To see what he would name them. He brought all the animals to Adam to see what he would name them. It's not like, oh, I'm going to call you elephant. Or oh, I'm going to call you fox. What's like a deeper way to kind of read into this? And I might be dead wrong, but this is kind of fun to do. What's a deeper way to read into that sentence? I'm going to call you a red-throated woodpecker. I don't think that that's what he was doing. I think he was giving them title. I think he was giving them more than just a scientific name to be registered in some genus and species. He was giving them a name. Guys, when you give something a name, you establish a relationship with that thing. Adam's job was to be a steward of all of creation. So when God brought all the animals to him, when I read this, the way it kind of sparks my gut is he was giving Adam the right to choose his relationship with all of creation. It wasn't just calling something a grasshopper. That's too short-winded and weird, in my opinion. Because what did God notice next? Look at what it says right here. Whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. In my opinion, that's Adam saying what his relationship to that thing is. I know you guys might be like, no, he's just calling it an elephant or a tiger, which he very well may have. Okay? So the man gave names to all the livestock, the birds in the sky, and all the wild animals. So here we go. I'm going to stay right here for this one. Can y'all see? Can y'all kind of see? I'll sit down. But for Adam, no suitable helper was found. Guys, helper is a word. The word is azer in the Hebrew. Have y'all heard that word before? That's what I mean. When I say names, names mean stuff. Do y'all know what your name means? What's Corey mean? Anybody know what their name means?
That means morning star.
Tina means morning star? That's cool. So that's what I mean. Like, there's an essence of reality in a name.
I'm a Jordan River.
Is that really what it means? You know the Jordan River is super sick.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is, dude.
I'm water. I'm water.
That's sick. What's wrong with being water, dude? All right, here, whatever. There was no suitable helper to be found. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep like Christian. And while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs and then closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. All right? No, we're not doing that. The man said, y'all know what he says? This is really, really famous. This is what you usually hear at weddings. Anybody know what he says? The man said, I do. No, he doesn't say that. He says, this is now bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. And that is why a man leaves his father and his mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh again. So, man and women...
You mean appointed?
That's true, I do. Very good. So, that's what's interesting about this scene. You got to understand. Woman was taken out of man. Meaning it was him. The woman was him. And out of him came the object that he should love. You're not made to love anything else. You're made to love woman. And woman, you're made to love man. And I'm going to keep digging into this because this is freaking sick. All right? Yikes. Y'all ready? What does this do to the conversation of gay marriage?
You said what marriage?
You said what? Mr. Yuri said gay.
No.
I did, though.
I didn't hear you. What is
So
it?
what does it do to the conversation of gay marriage? Yeah, I mean, it's just the exact opposite. It's basically saying that the thing that was made to be a partner from the dawn of all time, the man chooses or the woman chooses, I would rather what? It's even deeper than that. Take it in the Pygmalion story.
Love who I want to love.
What?
Love who I want to love.
Not even love who I want to love. I'd rather love... This is what a lot of people don't say about gay marriage, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Gay marriage is narcissism. I don't want to love something other than me. I want to love the thing that reflects me. I don't want to discover what's different from me. I want to love what's me. I get me. My soul, my mind, my heart, my body, I understand. I would rather relate to something that matches those things. And don't get me wrong, there's a pretty intense argument there. That's why the conversation of gay marriage is not going to ever end. Ever. Ever. That's why it's always existed. Maybe not the marriage, but homosexuality. The choice to relate to and know something that's exactly like you in flesh, bone, spirit, and mind. Hard to say no to that. At least in that form of a conversation. Because this is what I'm going to get into next. All right? Because, spoiler alert, marriage between man and woman is insanely hard. It's so hard. So, let's keep going. We kind of already talked about that. Let's get out of there. No. Let's do it. Because we talked about gay marriage. What about singleness?
Like being single?
That is what singleness means.
There are people that God calls to be single.
Yeah. This is interesting. It's like it wasn't literally the one thing that God said in Genesis that was not good was the fact that man was alone. That's really confusing. Now, this is something important, Tana, because you're right. He said that before the fall. The one thing that was not good was that man was alone. The only thing that was not good, not doing what it should be doing, was before the fall. And then once the fall happened, we know that relationship wasn't the same. It's literally the definition of the fall. Relationship is no longer the same. So, we can talk about that for a minute. All right. What about sexual desire as a whole? Once again, still stemming from that verse, the one thing that was not good was the fact that the man was alone, that he lacked, he needed, he desired something that nothing else in all of creation could offer. God gave him that one thing that should be desired, that fills that lack. And it was a what? It was a woman. Flesh of his flesh, bone of his bone. That's why he leaves his family and he unites with the woman, becoming one flesh again. That's the desire of all people. And I would even argue, this is my argument, Tana. No one goes their entire life. No one goes their entire life always wanting to be single. No one. Even the people who from the time they were 20 to 80 knew that they were going to be single, there was a time where they were looking. They were hunting for a way to unite their flesh to another person, mind, body, and soul. That's my argument. So, let me go now to Corinthians. What was rampant in Corinthians? Prostitution. And what else did I say? I don't even know if I did tell you this. Everyone knew you'd go to Corinth for two reasons. First reason is exactly what Tyler just said. This was the Las Vegas. This was the Amsterdam. This was the red light district. Free flow goes here. You could come for that free flow if you so chose. But a really odd second reason to come there. Can anyone maybe infer? Well, the temples are where the orgies were happening. They were literally like, you go there for that. True, you're right. Okay, so that's an economic reason. I'm talking about the prostitution thing.
Oh.
You go for the prostitution. What might be another reason why you go for the prostitution? This is weird. literally to try to resist the temptation. People would go to Corinth to just try to resist it. Does anybody know what that philosophical group was called? Anybody know what that group was called? The one group that would enjoy whatever the male body had to offer was called the Epicurean philosophy. You're made to enjoy and feel pleasure. That's the Epicurean philosophy. And a lot of modern American philosophy, is Epicurean. But the other side of it is Stoic or Stoicism. So Stoicism says you're made to actually resist those deep calls of the body, mind, and spirit. For you to become a good person, you have to become better at resisting the desire of the body. So when he was writing to the Corinthians, he was writing it twofold. He was saying, continue to do your best to resist this stuff. But there are so many Stoics around you saying that the end goal, the be-all end goal, of being a human is to resist desire. Guys, is that true?
No.
Absolutely freaking not. From Genesis, even before the fall, God said it's not good for man to not have an object to not only desire, but to flesh out that desire. He must be able to give his love and desire to something. So yeah, Stoic philosophy has a lot of good roots, a lot of good things, self-control, gratitude, patience, temperament. Like, it's got a lot of good branches to it, but its root is in a weird reality that you're only as good as your ability to resist desire, put down desire. A lot of people would say that's synonymous with Christianity, but man, they're following a weird Christianity. Because what does the Bible say about desire? Where did it come from? It says this, it says God gives you your desires. A lot of people read that and they translate that as to mean God gives you what you desire. But that's not what that sentence means. The sentence means God gives you the way you desire. That obviously has a lot of really heavy things to talk about too. Go, Corey. Go ahead, buddy. So now, this is what he says. Because they apparently wrote to him. We obviously don't see the letter. But they wrote to him and they said this thing up here. Now, concerning the matters about which he wrote, saying this, it is well for a man not to touch a woman. How many of you guys went to churches where that was kind of like the message? There was no, maybe you do right now go to a church that proclaims like, stay away from sexual things all the time. But then when you get married, you should know exactly it's like, what? How are you supposed to just like bash all the ideas of sexual desire, put it down, beat it down, make it dark, put it in the red, and then all of a sudden be like, oh, you're married now. It's so great, isn't it? It's like, I have no idea how to desire this right. No one taught me how to desire this right. But because of the temptation to immorality, this is what Paul says. It's weird considering what we read yesterday. Each man should have his own wife. And each woman should have their own husband. Don't just live a life trying to resist desire as much as you possibly can. It's not wrong to touch a person of the other gender. The husband should give to his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband. And then here's where I want to let it stick. It's funny, Tina's the only girl in here. All the other ones are gone now. For the wife does not rule over her own body, but the husband does. A lot of people read that. They pull that, once again, way out of context, and they leave it right there. The wife doesn't rule over her own body. The husband does. What does that obviously trigger in the majority of people's minds modern day? Paul is a sexist, 1,000%. Let's read the next verse. Likewise, the husband does not rule over his own body, but the wife does. Do not refuse one another, except perhaps maybe by agreement for a season. Like maybe you are starting to catch yourself being roped into an extra marital desire, and somehow you're bringing that sort of desire into your own marriage. If that's happening, take a break, is what he's saying right here. Take a break of that kind of acting out of desire for a season to really make sure that your heart and spirit are right, so that you can devote yourselves back to prayer, but please come back together again. Don't separate yourself for the sake of proving how good you are at resisting desire. Come back together again. You must, lest Satan tempt you through lack of self-control. You will be ripped apart if you do that. So that's one of the reasons that he was writing to them in Corinth. Okay, so this is something, it stinks because all the girls are gone. But are men and women different intrinsically from birth? No, like are men and women, like do you believe that men and women are different intrinsically from birth? This is obviously a core theological reality that you must have a statement on, especially today. Do you think that when a girl is born, she is from birth different from a boy who was born in the next room at the exact same moment?
No.
Maybe even twins. Do you think they're different?
No.
You think they're just... Go ahead.
They're not different, but they have nothing different, to be honest. They just came out stomach with it. They change. They can't do anything different. So
Okay. All right. So I'm just trying to get you straight. A female baby and a male baby, they have no difference.
when they're first born, no.
Okay.
No, there's biological differences.
What biological differences?
Like
Obviously, I'm just asking.
downstairs.
Downstairs. Okay, so physically, how about that, Jordani?
Oh.
Physically, they are different. Do you deny that?
Yeah,
Okay, downstairs, yeah, but nothing else?
not really, no.
You don't think like brains or anything else are different?
Like estrogen and testosterone. are
So there are...
Oh.
Size.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, on average, baby boys are born like a pound heavier than girls. So already in the womb, their hormones, estrogen and testosterone, make their bodies different all the way around. They all have eyes, they all have ears, they all have tongues, mouths, noses, necks, arms, everything. You're saying right now that downstairs is the only difference.
You know, wait,
I respect it. All right? Let's keep talking though. All right? Does society design them then? Because you're saying that they're not different. So does society design them differently? And that's why they end up being different. So like, let me ask you this, Rudani. Is Tina just like one of the dudes right now? Are there really just dudes in the class?
in a way, not really.
In a way, not really.
And so it's because obviously she's a girl in that way.
Obviously, she's a girl in that way.
Yeah.
And that's the only way she's different from you and JP.
Yeah. No, basically. All she is a girl. Think about it.
All she is a girl.
We're learning the same thing. We're thinking the same thing.
So I can treat you. This is fine. I love that you're being like, I really do, Jordani. I respect the fact that you're doing this a lot. I can treat you and JP exactly the way I treat Tina.
No.
I'm asking Jordani.
It depends on certain things.
Like what certain things? This is good because this is society. This is what I'm talking about.
I don't know, like, so there's probably certain things that you can't say to a female that you can probably say to a guy. I don't
Why? That has nothing to do with downstairs.
Yeah, but like I don't even know anymore. It's like,
Well, this is why we're having the conversation. Because today, or Jordani, you've probably heard more likely the conversation that you're talking about right now today. Basically saying, like I said at the beginning of yesterday's conversation, if I say there's any difference about men and women, I'm in trouble. That's today's vibe, isn't it? That's why I'm asking this question. Because now I'm making you defend that stance, and now it makes you feel uncomfortable.
I don't know, I'm just confused.
For sure. Because I'm asking you to find the root of reality about what's the difference between that human being sitting right there and you as a human being sitting right there. Because I guarantee you, regardless of downstairs, you will never treat Tina the way you do JP. You will never, ever do that. And that's a reality we got to dig into.
Treat them with like respect.
Right, and so that's kind of what we're getting to here in this next one. All right? We can't do this because this is the the respect thing. How would you just really quickly say women interact differently from men with others? Because we got like 20 seconds left.
Women are very supportive of each other.
It's interesting. They have a sort of like intrinsically kind of like, I don't know, uplifting, nurturing vibe to them. Whereas men kind of have a what?
Degrading.
No, y'all are stuck in high school. That is what high school is like, but yeah, that's true, actually. That's really good. You can literally just look at when a girl posts a selfie of herself on Instagram, there's like 57 like, slay queen, hot, blah, 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 blah. But then if a boy were to post like a lone, be like, yo, what are you doing, dude? No, that's true. Because I would just say this. I would say this. Obviously, we're about to be done. Women are more free-flowing with their emotions. Men are having to be more reasoned and logical with the way that they open up their heart. Otherwise, they're at risk. It's a unique scenario. We'll keep talking about it tomorrow.
Guys are more realistic.
You're very young.
No, guys just know that.